I know some people are into crazy power in their cars, and today I'm going to talk to you about 5 cars that cost less than £20,000, all of which have insane power. All of them have over 500 brake horsepower, one has over 600 brake horsepower, and with that, let's jump straight into it. Hit like if you want to see more videos like this, subscribe as well if you're new. Without further ado, let's get straight into it. Let's kick this video off with, surprisingly, the only car that actually sits in the sports car class on this list, the Jaguar XKR, which for me is basically the less exotic predecessor to the newer F-Type, despite both cars being inspired by the classic E-Type Jag. If anything, when it comes to Jaguar sports cars, it feels like they always hark back to the E-Type to some degree, if only to try to play into that car's legendary status. I do, however, think that the XKR is an exceptionally good looking car, and is a credit to its highly decorated designer, Callum, who actually made the original designs back in 2002 before the car hit the roads in 2006. It almost looks Aston Martin-esque, which makes sense given Mr. Callum's involvement in multiple Astons of the same era, in particular the DB7 and Vanquish. The engine though is typically Jag, a 5-litre supercharged V8 that produces 502 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 4.6 seconds, with the focus really being on wafting rather than out and out performance, given it's a grand touring luxury sports car. And if it's luxury and performance that you're after, I would recommend looking for an XKR portfolio spec, as development was handed over to Jag's special vehicles team, meaning it got some slightly more aggressive specs all around, like larger brakes, the lighter alloys, and then the nicer interior that was specifically designed for it. Either way, the car got a proper facelift in 2009, and I would say the update models do look a little nicer, a lot cleaner, and more aerodynamic around the front end in particular. They'll run you around 10k at the bottom end these days, making it the cheapest car on the list, and double that gets you a 2009 model with 50k on the clock. Electrical problems are the key ones known on these, with the fan sticking on being a telltale sign. It's actually one of the cheaper cars on this list from a maintenance and repairs perspective though, despite some of JLR's recent problems. It's been a favourite car of videos like this, but the Bentley Continental GT does offer an insane amount of power for the money, as it has probably the single most ridiculous powertrain on this list. This powertrain came courtesy of VW, as the Conti was the first new Bentley to arrive following VW's purchasing of the Bentley brand in 1998, and it didn't come without its controversy, as some people weren't happy with the way VW had changed the way Bentleys were built. It went from being a low production, predominantly classically built luxury brand to a brand that mass produced cars, using mass production techniques, with this GT being the first to do exactly that. This has obviously had a pretty major impact therefore on the depreciation of these cars longer term, hence today you can find them starting at around £11,000, with 20k being enough for a 2005 model with 50,000 miles on the clock. For that kind of money, you'll be getting yourself into a 6-litre twin turbocharged W12 engined beast, which puts out 552 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 4.8 seconds, and in quite a high level of luxury too, though it's debatable whether it's the most luxurious car on the list when you see what I've got at number 1. For its time, the Conti had some of the most incredible potential spec options imaginable though, specifically on the interior. Clearly the car is focused on the occupants more than it is the people looking at it from the outside. It wasn't all VW's idea though, it took some learnings from the Bentley concept Java car that appeared at Geneva in 1994, with the concept being that it would be a cheaper route into Bentley ownership than other models, in line with a lot of what was going on elsewhere in the luxury market at the time. Think Porsche with the Boxster and the likes. People love to rag on these though for their reliability, but in reality they're actually not that bad. Yes, they're probably the single most expensive car on this list if something does go wrong, but it's worth noting that W12 isn't under any real stress in this car. Taking third on the list, we have the F10 BMW M5, the first M5 to have turbos attached, and the first that took us away from the ever increasing engine capacity of that nameplate. Many people therefore weren't originally a fan of it on release, but it's important to remember history correctly, as though the E60 M5 is becoming an increasingly loved classic today, it wasn't the most well loved M5 model in history itself at the time of arrival, as it quickly got a bad reputation for reliability, and it was around during the financial crisis in 2008, so a lot of potential buyers may have been put off the concept of getting into a potentially unreliable V10 engined executive family car. The F10 wasn't just the first to get turbos though, it was also the first M5 to get the DCT automatic box, which culminated in the car putting in a respectable 7 minutes 55 second lap time at the Nürburgring, 18 seconds faster than the E60. That's because it came with a 4.4 litre twin turbocharged V8, which produces 552 brake horsepower, matching the Bentley, taking it to 60 in 4.2 seconds, seconds, making it the quickest car on the list, even if it isn't the most powerful. This car can very easily be both a sleeper or an aggressive looking super saloon. It all effectively comes down to how many M performance parts you've got all over it, as you could literally ASBO your car from factory, which is pretty cool in my opinion. Add on some more useful options like the carbon ceramic brakes and you're onto a proper machine, especially because a lot of owners complain about the standard brakes on them. Today they'll run you around £14,000 at the bottom end, and 20k is enough for a 2014 model with 70,000 miles on it. In the early days there were a few that had poor rear springs, but these were replaced back in 2012. There is also a known pipe clip on the induction system that loosens itself, and known issues with a few of the key sensors around the fuel pressure sensor and brake sensors. So I hope you guys are enjoying this video. If you are, then do hit the like button and subscribe as well if you're new. And let me know in the comments down below, would you rather have a lightweight car with enough power to make it fun to drive, or a heavy car with shed loads of power? I prefer the lighter weight cars, but maybe you prefer the heavy ones. Let me know in the comments down below. The C6 generation Audi RS6 Advance is arguably my personal favourite for one absolutely fundamental reason: its engine. A 5-litre twin turbocharged V10 that makes 571 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 4.4 seconds, which is certainly not bad at all for a family estate car. It might not be the most flary looking generation, and it may have had its problems over the years, but with the right exhaust on one of these to really let that V10 sing, you're effectively driving a car that looks like a family car, costs as much as the new Kia Picanto, and sounds like a supercar. Reliability aside for a moment, it's a winning formula. And if we bring reliability back into the frame, even that's not terrible on them. However, there are some key things you need to know. There's a 50p oil seal that can go wrong, which sounds cheap and simple, but sadly it's very hard to reach, and prices for repairs range from around 1.5k to 4k even from what I can see on forums. Outside of that, it's the oil temperature sensor failing and some coolant leaks to be wary of, plus the fact that it guzzles petrol and brake pads. This car suffered with the exact same issue I mentioned for the E60 M5, however, the global financial crisis. It arrives at the exact moment that everyone was losing money, so again spending crazy cash on a family estate was only done by those with money left over, or those who love the RS6 that much. One thing that made it so special on release was the fact that it was Audi's most expensive road car ever, and it was indeed more powerful than its main rivals, the M5 and E63 AMG, as a result of that twin turbocharging, while they came naturally aspirated. I think long term these are great news. The RS6 is so well loved, and the fact that you can get them so cheap right now is crazy considering the potential classic status of the best examples. These start at around £14,000, and 20k will get you a 2008 example with 100k on the clock, give or take. Taking the top spot on this list is not only the most powerful car, it's the most expensive, given the Mercedes S65 AMG starts at around our 20k limit, which will just about get you a 2006 model that's done around 70,000 miles. Brand new, these are around the 150k mark, not adjusted for inflation, which makes this an absolute bargain today. And there's a reason why it was so expensive. It probably is the most luxurious car on the list. It's a long wheelbase car first of all, so limousine spec. Then when you add on the 6-litre twin turbocharged V12 engine, producing a massive 621 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 4.3 seconds, you really do have a ridiculously wafty, powerful luxury limo. The RS6 may have been the most powerful Audi, but the S65 AMG was the most powerful production saloon car on release, which when compared to the M5 that was around at the same time, had almost double the power. But it's important to remember that the active body control is still focused on making the car as comfortable and wafty as possible. It also has massive brakes both front and rear to have insane stopping power. Basically everything is about making it as confident a car to drive as possible, meaning in true AMG fashion, you can actually bash it around like an oversized super saloon. And as it's an S-Class, of course, the electrics are completely ahead of their time, like the entertainment system and potential fridge between the rear seats if it was spec'd. Though it's the analog stuff that really gets me going, like the IWC clock on the dashboard. On reliability, it is those electrics that let them down sadly, but engine-wise they're known to be pretty good. Misfires come from coil packs failing, which can be hassle to replace considering there are 12 of them. Do watch out for corrosion too under the car before buying, as though these are better than a lot of previous Mercs that arrived after quality control dipped in the 90s, they're still known to rust at times. And so there you have it, 5 cars, all less than 20 grand, all with insane levels of power. If you haven't already, do hit like and subscribe as well for 2 videos every single week. Click up here for a video on some mad depreciated electric cars, subscribe as well down here. Huge thanks to the patrons for their support, and you guys all for watching. I'll see you in the next one.